religion and not particularly sign up to it, and they just sort of follow the guidelines that were set before them.
Okay.
Which I don't know if it's a bad thing or a good thing. Yeah.
Okay. And do you think that may be the reason why people in this country have left religion? They're not convinced by it and they don't feel there's any value to the thoughts of that religion.
No, I'm not sure if people have left religion, to be honest.
Okay. I mean, generally people in this country are no longer Christian. They used to be.
Again, I'm not sure. I don't know if that's true.
Okay. And with yourself, were you raised as a Christian or in any particular religion?
No, I wasn't raised as either. Like my mum and dad don't have strong views either way.
Okay.
But they're not really for religion.
They're not really for religion. Okay, good. And are you familiar with the sorts of arguments that people come up with God's existence using nature?
Yeah, I've heard the one where they say everything that you see is created, so if everything that you see is created, why won't we create?
Right, there's that. And also people use nature, like for example this tree. Trees have this amazing ability to take in carbon dioxide and put out oxygen, right? And within this system, you have thousands of processes. And these processes include photosynthesis when it comes to the leaves. And that at a basic level even goes down to something which is akin to quantum mechanics in terms of how these biological processes work. All of this is a sign of a designer, don't you think?
Yeah.
And do you think that this designer, this creator, is what we call God, or do you think it's something else?
I think my view is that he's got intelligence and he's aware of what he's doing.
Aware, okay. Do you think it's conscious? It has a will, it has awareness, it has...
Again, I'm not sure, but I'd probably say if he was aware of what he was doing, then he's probably conscious of what he's doing.
Okay, good. What if I was to put to you, Carl, that right now, you're a conscious, intelligent being?
Yes.
So am I. And we are interacting. In this interaction, both of us are trying to arrive at what is true. Right? We're both trying to arrive at what is valuable.
Okay.
Likewise, don't you think it's God who's instilled values within us to make us value truth and value this type of interaction?
Most likely, yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that Islam teaches, are you familiar with Islam? Do you know much about it?
A little bit, yeah.
What Islam teaches is that this creator has made us for a purpose.
Okay.
And that purpose is to have a relationship with God. So I'll give you a small thought experiment. If right now you could be a billionaire with no friends and family, or you could be poor with lots of loving friends and family, what do you prefer?
Poor with lots of loving friends.
Why? Why is that?
I suppose if you've got all of the riches in the world, material-wise, then you're still craving something. You're going to want your health and you're going to want love still.
Exactly. So, Carl, you value relationships more than you value money.
I'd like to think so, yeah.
What do you think is the greatest type of relationship a human being can have?
I suppose the correct answer is with God.
Yeah. So Islam says we have a relationship with each other, we have a relationship with nature, and we should have a greater relationship with God because that relationship will give us inner peace. I'll tell you something in this world. The richest people, with everything they have, they're still miserable. Why do you think that is?
Because they don't have a relationship with God, maybe.
Yeah. Do you think that...
Or they've created the wealth by means that they're not really sure of.
Say that again, sorry?
So the question was, why are some people who are rich or they've got lots of wealth, why are they still not happy?
Yeah.
Maybe they're not happy with the way that they've made the money.
There's that too. What if they inherited the money and it's purely something that they can justify as legal and is justified, but they still are miserable because they were not created for this world? So yourself right now, if you're thirsty, you're going to drink water. If you're hungry, you're going to eat. Likewise, when your soul is thirsty or hungry, you cannot give it water. You need to give it a relationship with God. So the Quran teaches us the human being is made up not just of a physical body, but also has a soul. Do you believe in the soul?
I think so, yeah.
What do you think nourishes the soul?
I'm not sure. The right thoughts. I'm not sure. I don't know.
Islam says the soul is nourished with a relationship with God.
Okay.
That's the only way it's nourished. This is also why in this life we go through a lot of difficulties. Every single person in this Speaker's Corner, they have either a financial issue, personal issue, health issue, moral issue. They could be getting evicted. They could be facing diabetes or cancer. Everyone has issues.
Yeah.
But when you have God with you, it gives you a spiritual anchor to lean on. What do you think about that?
I think it's wonderful and I think it's lovely, and for those who can fully subscribe to that, I've got a lot of respect for, but I find it difficult to make that initial leap
Okay.
to actually submitting that there is a God and He does know everything, because I'm not 100% sure.
Okay,
I know
sure.
there's no one way to be 100% sure, but I don't have.
Yeah. I can see you're a very thoughtful person, so maybe you can let me know what makes you hesitant towards making that commitment that there is a God that I need to have a relationship with.
Because there's so many different point of views of how the correct way to have a relationship with that God is. Like, you can speak to a Muslim, he'll tell you it's one way, you can speak to a Christian, he'll tell you it's another way.
Yeah.
You can speak to different people, and everybody seems to have this definitive answer, which, fair enough, if you could submit to it completely and it works for you, that's fantastic and wonderful. But if there is this all-knowing, beautiful God, which I hope that there is, surely He understands these differences.
So what if I was to say to you, Carl, that if someone comes up to you and they are a Buddhist, they're going to say Buddhism's true. A Christian's going to say Christianity is true. Hindu's going to say Hinduism's true. Muslim's going to say Islam is true. You should adjudicate between the different options using reason and logic. What do you think about that?
I agree to that, yes.
Yeah. So there has to be a common denominator. It's like in science. I have a scientific theory, so does another person, so does another person. But we have to go with what fits the scientific method. What is predictable, what is repeatable, what is empirically verified. Likewise, 10 people can come up to you and say to you, my religion's true. So you have to use your reason and logic to do a process of elimination. Maybe they're all wrong. Maybe one of them's right and the rest are wrong. Maybe two are right. So we have to use our reason and logic, because it's not enough to say there's too many and I'm not sure. We need a way of working it out. What do you think?
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
But what? So, if you don't, then what?
Sorry?
If you don't,
If you-
by the end of life you haven't came up with this
Criteria.
criteria, or you haven't made that decision, then what?
I would say in your life you would.
Knackered. That's it.
Sorry?
Then you're knackered.
Well, you are knackered. You are knackered. I agree with you. But also, you're in a state of confusion, because you now have competing worldviews telling you they're true, and you know fundamentally there must be a creator, and so there must be something that's true, but we don't know what it is. Now, if I was to say to you, firstly, it makes sense that God communicates with the world, because if you, Carl, made a factory, and are you into any sorts of sports? Is there a particular sport you like?
I do like yoga.
Yoga, there you go. Or something, mountain biking, or something that there's physical stuff that can be manufactured, like
Hiking.
Hiking. Okay, brilliant. Hiking. If you go down the road, Bond Street, you're gonna come, and Leicester Square, in these areas, you're gonna come across hiking shops. Okay. Inside the hiking shops, there's lots of equipment. And I know that the hikers are really pedantic about the type of equipment they want to get, the type of shoes, the types of laces, the type of buckles, the type of bags. Imagine someone makes a shop and they're selling hiking equipment, and they do not send a manager to the shop. They just lead the employees to do what they want. What would happen to that shop?
It might just run itself, I suppose.
Very unlikely. If they don't know what the prices are, they don't know what to sell, they don't know where to order from, they don't have an inventory, meaning they need a manager. They need the boss to send a manager to tell them, this is how you run the shop. This is how you sell stuff. This is how you keep an inventory. This is how you do invoices, right? This is how you do customer retention. Now, God created the world. It's like a factory. Is God going to lead all of us on our own, or is God going to send to us some form of guidance?
From this factory, you've got the decision to leave that factory, haven't you? And then you can go to another factory. So I don't think that really works.
In this case, we can't leave. In this case, we are in this world.
Okay. But in that case, where you're working in a hiking shop, you can just leave that factory guidance.
Yeah.
If you're not getting that guidance in that particular factory.
Yeah, exactly. And
you can leave that factory, you can go to another one where you think it's like
where you will get guidance, right? So rationally, the owner of the shop, it makes sense they should send a manager.
Okay.
Right?
Yes. So that manager being Muhammad.
So we believe the managers, or not managers, the messengers, they have come throughout time, and we don't know how many messengers there are. There could have been thousands upon thousands. Okay. In the ancient times, Moses, Jesus.
Just going to interrupt.
Sure.
So on that one there, so fair enough. The place didn't have a manager, so they've sent in a manager to sort the job out. They've sorted the job out. Let's say that manager is Muhammad.
Yes.
Yeah? So Muhammad's now left. So what? So Muhammad now just doesn't leave, or as soon as that place leaves, then the factory won't work anymore. No new managers allowed. As soon as Muhammad's gone, you can't have another manager or messenger.
Yeah,
That's what I struggle with.
No, it's a good question. We believe he came with a manual, and he came with a system, and we are supposed to apply the manual and system. Now, the first thing that you should ask me, because you're an intelligent man, is why should we believe in the Prophet Muhammad and not Moses or Jesus or Buddha or Krishna or someone else? Why him? The first thing to keep in mind is all of the other messengers we believe in as well. Jesus, Moses, we believe in all of them. The difference between Islam and Hinduism and Christianity and all religions is Islam tells you to only worship the one true God. It doesn't tell you, like the Catholics do, to go to a saint who is dead and call upon the saint. It doesn't tell you, like Hinduism, to go to an idol. It doesn't tell you, like shamanism, to go through nature. It tells you to go to God directly.
But it tells you to go through Muhammad, though, doesn't it?
No. It tells you the Prophet is only a messenger. That's all he is. So we do not pray to God through Muhammad. We pray to God directly. And in fact, before the Prophet Muhammad existed in this world, we also prayed to God directly at the time of Jesus, at the time of Moses. So Islam says between you, Carl, and God, there's no barrier. It's you and God directly. Now, firstly, this distinguishes Islam from all other religions, automatically. Other religions say to get to God, you have to go through...
So the only way is through Muhammad and his message, though, isn't it?
No.
That could be classed as a barrier, couldn't it? That is a barrier to God. In order to get to God, you need to go through that barrier of the...
Yeah, so to get to God, you don't need to go to the Prophet Muhammad. You do not. You simply need to go to God directly. So in the Quran it says, when you need help, you turn to God. Whenever you're going through any problems, you turn to God. So in Islam, going to God is the only thing that you're supposed to do. Now, if you look at all the other religions, and I'm sure you've learned a lot of things in your life about Hinduism, Buddhism, shamanism, Taoism, Tengriism. Every religion has an element of you have to go through something else beside God. Islam's the only religion that says it's you and God directly and nothing else. Isn't that powerful?
Yes.
So automatically it makes you adjudicate Islam separately to the other religions. It's not saying it's...
What is the frame of mind you need to be in order to get closer to God? So praying, for example, isn't that just like a conduit of getting closer to God? The same way as what a yogi might say, in order to get closer to the Creator, you need to be in certain poses or be in a certain state of mind. Is the act of praying, could that not be considered sort of a yoga pose, for want of a better phrase?
That's a very good question, but I would say we don't believe in that, because right now you're standing here in Speaker's Corner on the 24th of May 2026.
Very beautiful day as well, isn't it?
Beautiful day indeed. Right now you could be in your heart of hearts calling upon God, and I wouldn't even know it. You could be worshipping God in your own way. So the fact is, in Islam, if I, like right now, look at those horses, those beautiful horses, right? If I look at those horses and I look at the elegance of the way that they move, if I look at the elegance with the way that their hooves are designed and their knees are designed, and you know the way that the horses run and the way that they gallop, me thinking about that is worshipping God, because I'm thinking about God's nature. Do you like going for walks? Do you like morning walks in particular? Okay. When you walk out in the morning and the sun's coming out and the rays are coming out, right? How do you feel? At that moment, if you think to yourself, wow, God made this, you're worshipping God. So in Islam, worship of God is 360. It's happening all the time. And we believe right now, this tree is worshipping God. This ground is worshipping God. The stars above are worshipping God. The whales in the ocean are worshipping God. So we believe in something very cyclical. And in the Quran it says, the heavens and the earth are declaring the glory of God. So continuously, even you right now, every single day, your heart is beating thousands of times. Every beat of that heart is not in your control, is it?
No.
It's God who's running your heart. That itself is a form of you showing your gratitude to God if you think about it. Because you think, all these processes happening in my mind, all these processes happening in my heart and my liver and my legs and everything that's happening to me physiologically, all of this is happening at every moment because God commands it.
Yes.
It's very powerful.
All religions would agree on that though, wouldn't they?
They would. But one thing they wouldn't agree about is Islam says you only go to God directly, not through anything else. So, for example, you know, we have the Catholics over there, you can see. They say to worship God, you have to go through a saint. When you have the evangelicals, they will say you have to go through Jesus, who's God's son. When you go to Hindus, they say you have to go through Krishna. When you go through Tengris, the religion of Genghis Khan, they will say the blue sky god. They'll worship nature. Islam's the only religion which says it's Qal and Allah. Qal and God. That's it. Isn't that liberating? You're not dependent on anyone.
But you're dependent on following Muhammad's word, right? Yeah? Or Muhammad's message.
The Prophet...
It's 100% dependent on you following Muhammad's message.
It's based upon his teaching, which is you only worship God alone. That teaching in of itself, you can arrive at even without knowing who he is.
So, your relationship is between you and God alone as long as it's following these guidelines.
Okay, I'll put it to you in another way to help you understand. If you've never heard of Islam, you're born on an island and you're only worshipping God. Your love, your hope, your fear, your relationship is only with God. You are already a Muslim even without hearing about the Prophet Muhammad. So we believe a Muslim, lexically, is someone who simply has the direct connection with God, who says I will only worship God. I will not believe in anything else. But if you hear about the message of the prophets, then you should accept the message once you verify it's true. In Islam, we do not believe in blind following. So I cannot say to you, here's a book, believe in it. We do not believe anybody should be compelled into religion and anybody should be asked to believe in something unless you can give them rational reasons why. You should reason with them, and reasons can not only be logical, we can also give them spiritual reasons. Do you see?
Yes.
So look, it takes a long time with anything. Like, have you studied anything like formally, like a skill or university or anything in your life?
I'm in the process of being an electrician at the minute.
Electrician, okay, brilliant. How long does it take to be an electrician?
3 years.
3 years, okay. Someone like myself with no experience, if I go in and connect two wires and short circuit the system, what would you say to me in return for me doing that mistake?
You need to follow certain guidelines in order to do it.
Yeah. So, God has given us a spiritual path. We know that we should only worship God alone. Even if you've never heard of Islam, the basic teachings of Islam make sense. For example, do you believe God is nothing like a human being? He's outside space, time, matter, he's completely unimaginable.
I'm not sure if I believe that now.
Okay.
I don't know if he's got human form, I don't know if the Muslims believe he's got human form.
No. And we believe it's irrational to believe God is physical or has human form. Because?
And Christians believe he is in human form.
Because they believe Jesus, and they believe Jesus is human.
But do they believe that God the Father, do they believe that he's in human form?
They don't, but they give him some human characteristics. And they say he rested on the seventh day, and that's a human characteristic to rest. God doesn't rest. Islam says God is not human and nothing like you can imagine. And the reason why this is logical is this. Right now, to see, I need eyes. To walk, to do anything, I need a corporeal body. I need a physical system to interact with the world. I am within space-time. God is independent of all causes. I am totally dependent. Anything with limitations is dependent. So God, by definition, is the cause of all dependent things in the universe.
So is God not dependent upon his creation itself?
Nothing. God is not dependent upon anything. He is therefore completely free and transcendent of everything.
Okay.
Does that make sense, that God is nothing like his creation? He's not within his creation, nothing like his creation.
Yeah.
Yeah? In the Quran, there's 4 statements that God says. It says that God is one. He has no beginning, no end. There's nothing like unto that God. He is eternal. All of these things you can arrive at, Carl, if you've never heard of Islam. If you've never heard of Islam and you are hiking on an island and all your life living on your own, you would have realized there's only one God, because by definition there cannot be 2 gods, because you cannot have one God limiting the other. God by definition is all powerful. If one God says make it rain, the other says don't make it rain, it will not work. Logically, there can only be one all-powerful God. 2, God is nothing like his creation. 3, God is the only one worthy of worship. Even before hearing about Islam or Jesus or Muhammad, peace be upon them, you would have known that this is the logical belief. This is why Islam, people arrive at, even before they've heard of Islam, they arrive at the truthfulness of Islam.
I'm not sure.
Can I offer you water?
Yeah, I'd like water.
I'm not sure.
Can you get me water too?
I'm not sure if that is a logical belief, because if you're in a desert,
Joe.
maybe you might be with you're going to see people have disagreements about things. So
Sure.
it might be a logical thing to think that these people have got one God, these people have got another God, these people have got another God. Like, it was only recently, probably a year or 2 ago, that I actually realised that Muslims and Christians actually believe in the same God, but they just have different
Conceptions.
interpretations or understandings of what we're supposed to do in order to follow them properly.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if it is completely logical. If we were left to our own devices and we didn't know anything about anything, that we'd come to the conclusion there's only one God.
Okay, so I'll give you something to think about this. There's 2 things happening in a person's mind when they come to belief in God. One is they're using reasoning and logic. The second is they're getting environmental input from their society. If a person is raised upon logic and reason with no environmental input, they will believe in a very pure concept of God. But if their parents and their society and their culture and their history teaches them Roman mythology, Hindu mythology, Egyptian mythology, Christian theology, then their reason will be tarnished with these ideologies. I'll give you something interesting. In Islam, we believe in what's known as the fitrah. This concept is called the inner disposition of man, meaning every human being has a moral sense of right and wrong. Now, you may and I may be raised in Nazi Germany, and our moral reasoning may be affected by the Third Reich. However, deep down inside, despite all the indoctrination, we will know this is wrong. It is wrong to kill other people. It is wrong to do this, it's wrong to do that. Likewise, our inner belief tells us there's one God. Christianity, Hinduism, Taoism, Tengriism, it may put pressures on us, but eventually our logic and reason will break through, and we will recognize it doesn't make sense for God to be physical. It doesn't make sense to worship God through a dead man. It doesn't make sense to worship God through nature. And there has to be one all-powerful God. So I agree with you, people have different conceptions of God, but they don't have different conceptions of God because of reason. They have different conceptions of God because of their environmental cues. Does that make sense to you? So with Islam, the Prophet taught us that every child is born upon the natural disposition. The natural disposition to only believe in God and only worship God. And he added that it's their parents who turned them into something else, meaning their environment. And if you think about it from a perspective of anthropology,
What does it say, the parents or the environment?
the Prophet mentioned the parents in particular. But when we are doing a explanation of that saying, because in Islam we take the statements of the Prophet and we apply reason to it to try and see what other lessons we can draw, the wider lessons. The wider lesson is cultural impact of society, not just parental influence.
But the specific words are
Parents. Yeah.
So where the Bible, I believe it says something along the lines of honour thy mother and father. Is that one of the Ten Commandments?
It is, yes.
So is there nothing like that in Islam?
So in Islam we have the same thing, and in fact God tells us, even if your parents are idol worshippers, even if your parents are worshipping other than God and they are doing something completely wrong, you still have to give them respect and honor. However, do not follow them in where they're wrong. But if they're right, for example, if someone's mum is a Hindu and they're a Muslim, and the mum says to the son, go clean your room, he has to follow her. Take out the trash. Take out the trash. He has to follow her. Sorry, how you doing? Good? Do this. He has to follow. However, she says to him, come with me to the temple so we can worship Ganesh. He says no. So Islam tells you respect, but there's certain guidelines that you do not cross.
Help me and say,
Have you read the Quran before?
A few years ago I read it. And some of it stuck, some of it didn't stick.
Some of it?
Some of it stuck, like some of it resonated in other parts.
What resonated with you?
I can't remember now, to be honest. But reading it, I did feel good reading it. Like when I was reading it, it did make me feel a little bit at ease.
If I can ask you to consider something. I have only met you today. I've never met you before. I can be lying to you, technically. A Hindu can come and tell you Hinduism's true and lie to you. A Christian can come say the same thing. God will never lie to you. We can lie to you. We're humans. Humans deceive each other.
Sorry, Suboor, no water.
That's fine. I'll go for this. I'll go for this. I think, Carl, you should ask God for what is right and what is the true religion, and you should say to God, I'm confused. Please guide me. Is Islam true? Is Hinduism true? Is Christianity true? Or is none of them true? Because I can misguide you, I can confuse you. God cannot. What do you think about that?
I like it. I bear it in mind.
Where did you get the copy of?
So I think you need to, in order to ask that question, I think you need to be in a certain frame of mind. So where am I going with this? I don't know where I'm going with it. It's an important question to ask yourself, isn't it? So when you are asking yourself that question, it's important to be in a certain frame of mind, or you need to be where you need to be inside of your own head in order to get a true reflective, a true answer.
Yeah.
To be truthful with yourself, or for the words to pass from God to yourself. So what if you can't get yourself in a peaceful enough frame of mind in order to ask yourself that question?
Very good
Do you think
question.
that, like meditation and things like that could come into it, or where you say praying comes into it?
This is a brilliant question, and it's a spiritual question. It's the sort of question that's usually asked by people who've had a lot of introspection, because I know exactly what you're talking about. God does not want perfection. God wants progress. I'll give you a small thought experiment. If you improve yourself 1% every day, just 1%, you improve yourself. I can see you're someone who takes physical care of themselves. If you eat the right food every day by 1%, you do 1% more exercise every day, 1% better relationships. After a year, how much better are you as a person?
1% every day better.
To calculate that, if we add 1% and we do a cumulative analysis,
365% better.
37.7 times better, right? Which is incredible. This is known as the 1% rule. If we improve by 1%.
Wait there, 1% times 365.
No, as in,
It's 37.
I'll put it to you another way. You see these blocks over here?
Yes.
Imagine this is a chessboard. If I put 1 grain of rice here,
Yes.
the next day I put 2. The next day I put 4. The next day I put 16. And then I put, you get it, right? By this time it gets to that point, we're gonna have hundreds of tons, okay? So it's the effect, compounding effect. That's what we're talking about. Spirituality.
Trying to bamboozle you, that made no sense whatsoever. Islam has this ability
Okay.
He's just getting to the point.
Muslims have the ability to say something that makes absolutely no sense and try and make
That did make a little bit of sense to be fair. All he was saying was, I asked him the question, I just asked, if he said if you just ask God, if you just...
he knows that he's trying to sound smarter than he is because he's not.
Shall we continue? Okay, we'll talk to you as well. No worries.
Go for it.
Okay, so when it comes to the compound effect every single day, we can improve significantly. So with your spirituality, you don't need to be in the perfect state of meditation. You don't need to be in the perfect frame of mind. It's better to be in like that. Like, for example, the morning times you feel more spiritual. Not being in a mental asylum like this.
Chip away every day.
Chip away every day, even a little bit. And you will soon discover that you are getting closer and closer to the one who created you. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Which is what? The closest to God.
Sorry?
The creator.
The creator.
Your Alan.
What I described to him is, even if you don't believe in Islam, as long as you believe in a creator, you can get closer to God.
What do you think of Christianity?
I believe, like I said to Carl here, is that in Christianity, there's a barrier between you and God. In Islam, it's you and God direct. That's why. Sorry?
If you believe there's a barrier and you think that Christians are not truly religious.
I believe Christians.
Answer the question.
So
yes,
what's the Christian barrier? Is he saying that Christian barrier is Jesus?
Yeah.
So we had this, and then I said, so what about Muhammad? Is it not in order to be Islam, you need to go through Muhammad in order to get to the God. So that's what I asked him myself.
He won't answer the question.
So,
it's gonna
no,
be
I did actually answer
No,
it.
he didn't.
I did answer it. Look,
You go, look, and
to worship God, to worship God, no, he's not. We don't believe Jesus is God at all.
okay, so Christianity is wrong.
Yeah, we believe Christianity is wrong. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, we do. Yeah, okay. I answered the question.
Believe Islam's wrong, or Christians believe Islam.
Okay, so look, to get to God, you never have to pray to Muhammad, peace be upon him. You don't. You could, like I mentioned to you a few minutes ago, you could be born on an island, you've never heard of Islam, and you could still have a relationship with God. Meaning in Islam, between you and God, there is no idol, there is no grave, there is no nature, there's nothing.
I still struggle with. Okay.
And like I said to you, Carl, it's going to take you time to work things out. So you already have a copy of the Quran, right? Or should I get you another copy?
I'll take one, yeah.
I'll take another one. I'll get you one.
It's very condescending
And
to say that.
and excuse me,
Take your time. No, you don't speak to me.
can you get me a physical copy of the Quran, please, from the brothers? How are you doing? Get me a physical. Just over here. Just over here.
You say it's going to take
It's
condescending.
sorry, I don't.
Condescending is going to take
Well,
time.
no,
Look
because
down on it.
we're talking.
It's like Muslims do that.
No, sorry. Just to be clear. I will never be condescending towards him or anybody else.
You say it's going to take you time. It's just looking down.
No, I'm saying that I don't particularly have a relationship
Okay.
with God.
So
So he's saying in order to get.
So look, my friend, look. It took me a long time to get to God. So I'm saying it's going to take time to learn things. It doesn't mean I'm being condescending. It just means I'm telling him there's a process. It's like anything in life. If you want to go to the gym and you want to build your body, or you want to run for the marathon, imagine this, Carl. We have the London Marathon.
Okay.
Can you run for it tomorrow? If it was tomorrow.
Probably not.
So if I asked you in a polite way, every day for the next 2 years, you should work on your diet and slowly improve 1%.
I've got no arguments with this.
Yeah, so he's saying that's being condescending. It's not. It's not being condescending at all. What are you talking about? How is that taqiyya? Look, my conversation with him, we're giving each other. Yeah, so we're giving each other. Look, we're giving each other mutual respect. I'm not being condescending. He's not being, and we're just learning from each other. Look,
What is that? What's that? What's that word?
it's when what? Sorry.
Muslims deflect to protect their own faith.
Muslims what?
Muslims detect to reflect their own faith.
They deflect. Okay, so as an intelligent person, he can come to that conclusion himself if he thinks I'm doing that. In fact, I gave him an answer, which is, didn't I give you the answer a few minutes ago where I said, I could lie to you, a Hindu could lie to you, a Christian could lie to you, but God will never lie to you, so pray to God. Didn't I say that?
Yeah.
There you go.
You didn't answer the question.
I did answer the question. Taqiyya is a Shia belief in which they believe they can lie. That's got nothing to do with this conversation that we're having.
Okay. From me and Brother Suboor, may Allah guide you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
It's great speaking to you, Carl. I'm here every week.
Cool.
And we also have a separate stall in Leicester Square, right? And if you want, I can give you my email address. If you have any questions, you can send me an email.
Yeah.
Here you go. You can chuck in your email.
I'll just take a photo of that if that's all right.
Yeah, that's fine.
I appreciate
It's
it.
great speaking to you. You have a lovely day.
You too. Bye-bye.
आपने छक्का लगाया है, छक्का लगाया है। तकरीबन काम खराब हो गया था।